Hello and welcome. These are horse racing selections for Wednesday the 27th of November. I am Flatcap Callum and I'm hoping you are all very well. Right, start of the channel week is Wednesday this week. The racing has been pretty shoddy, I would say. Sundays, I mean, a lot of it got a bit washed out. There was some okay stuff in the end, but yeah, Monday was one of the poorest days I've seen in a long time. I mean, in terms of when I say poorest, it wasn't it's not every single race full of donkeys, but from a value point of view, it wasn't there. And then yeah, Tuesday wasn't really close, to be honest. Like personally, I backed a couple of biggie prices. I think I backed 3 horses, one placed, but they weren't up to much in terms of, like, you know, weren't near what I would want to do for the channel. I arrive at Wednesday. We got Dundalk on, so that's a tick in the box for me. And I found one horse on the jumps that I like. So we've got one horse on the jumps, 3 at Dundalk to make it a Yankee to start the week. 11.50 is the stake. Now there is a health warning, because as much as, you know, I know a lot of people know we like a price and we know we like a little bit of an outrageous bet. I think this one might be stretching it for people. So anyone who's like borderline, like is this guy for real? I think this is going to tip you over. So I'm just letting you know now, right? So any loyal followers of the channel will be like, you know, trust the system, trust the process, it's fine. Anyone who's a naysayer, this will just reinforce it to them. Anyone who's borderline, I'm sorry, I'm going to push you over the edge, because you're going to look at this and go, nah, this is a joke, absolute joke. Because I've got 4 horses, and I say horses based on form, probably zebras, is how you might describe them. Zebras running in a race of horses. They don't look like thoroughbreds, some of these. So yeah, I'll get to it. I have to give you also another caveat. I've been faffing about for a while, and yeah, basically my brain's gone a bit. So when I did the horses, I'm telling you, it was fine. But I'm also probably going to do an arse-awful job of explaining to you why I haven't taken magic mushrooms tonight to give you the selections. But at the end of the day, if everybody gets a wry smile, whichever way you look at it, whether you enjoy the bet or you just think I'm some sort of loser, you know, peddling rubbish, then hopefully most people will get a wry smile out of it. So there we go. I was going to Cheltenham. I was going to mention Cheltenham for the first time on my video since I come back. I was going to mention Cheltenham, so I'll do that. So Saturday's review. We need to do Saturday review. We didn't have a good day. 10 loser days on the bounce. So I think, yeah, last time we had a winning day, it was Breeders' Cup Saturday. We had a good Breeders' Cup bet, and I've done 10 videos since then, and they've lost every single one. Not every single pence, but none of them have been any good, and we've lost all 10. So 10 losing videos in a row, it's not a lot of fun, is it? I'm not having fun, and you're not having fun doing it. So let's say we need a little bit of magic this week, and let's think 4 zebras. Out of 4 zebras, 2 place zebras, get a profit maybe. Anyway, this is what we did. These 2, I think really just conditions got the better of them, because they did seem to be running okay, and then they sort of by the time you got to third last, second last fence, it just sort of faded. So I'd still be wanting to keep an eye on Twig. Either discipline, handicap chase or handicap hurdle, I think worth keeping an eye on Twig. Brave Man's Game ran 3rd, but because of non-runners, I think there was 3 bookies that paid it out, which was Sky, Paddy and Betfair. We had a win single, but you could have, I think it was Sky paid out for Credo, because that was 4th. So they would have been fine 3rd and 4th, but because of non-runners, that only meant Sky paid them out. So some people got a few bits back for place there. So I didn't, no return for the channel, but I didn't think the bet was the end, you know, at the end of the world. But clearly we all want a better result. We had a non-runner that was poor. I think that ran a really good race, came from the clouds and was 2nd, and then that was, my memory says it was shoddy, but it was Saturday. I think it was what we on? It was 235 back, was it? 19 on 235 back was where we got to, which I think put us down last week about 40 quid, and we're down about 40 quid for the month of November. We've got 4 days of November left. So if you recall, September we were up 147, it's like a snooker score. October we were down 140, so we were down about 7. I think we're down about 40 for November, roughly down about 50 since I've been back. Clearly, you know, the rest of the other story won't bore you. I'm not going to go on about it the rest of the video, but all the stats are in the description. They're there, they're clear, they're transparent, they're not hidden, they're not at the bottom. You don't have to go and find the small print. The main stats, the kind of how have we done in the last months, years, whatever. That's all the first stuff if you go look in the description for those of you who like it or have never noticed it. So we've got 4 days in November to see if we can turn around a 40 odd quid deficit. It's 41, something like that. 4 days. So Saturday's the last day of the month. Let's see, we'll have a little bit of magic. That would be lovely. We need a bit of cheer on the channel, I think. So some magic, please. Betting gods. Hope you listen. Well, you are listening. You're always listening. Just whether or not you choose to do anything about what I'm asking. But betting gods, please. Some betting magic in the next 4 days. Get us a nice profit for this week and turn November into something a little bit better, please. That would be lovely. Thank you. All right, a piece has been said there. So I think, yeah, we talked about that with stats. I'll mention Tips League. I will do Tips League at some point this week. Not sure if it'll be tomorrow or next video. Maybe try and do tomorrow. But the big news is that those of you who are avid Tips the League fans will know there is a new person at the top of the Tips the League leaderboard. True fact. More to come on that on another video. Right. 4 zebras. Let's see what we can do. What can I remember to tell you about these 4 zebras? Wetherby. There is an inspection at Wetherby. I mean, whenever they say cautiously optimistic, I'm like, no chance. That seems to be the phrase, isn't it? Like the sort of the heads ground people go, yeah, cautiously optimistic, but no, it never happens. Wetherby, they reckon they can make a racing line, but they're still talking about standing water on the track. So I'm doubtful, and if it happens, we'll end up with an each way Trixie. So you know, if by the time you're watching this, Wetherby's off, then this becomes a 50p win Trixie because that's the bet that the channel will have. That'll defer as an on-runner. That's the equivalent. So if you want to, if you're doing it then. But I've got this horse at Wetherby, and also I think I'm impressed with myself no end on this one because everybody knows on this channel when they're all these ones where they're like words together and don't make sense. I can't read them, but I actually know what that is. I actually do. It's not Gaelic either. So you can go you can hun. It's you okay hun, right? So if any of you, probably more younger viewers, you might know there is a phrase that exists. You okay hun? It's one of them ones. It's a bit of a patronising. Are you all right? Like either because you've done something stupid or you know, whatever. But you okay hun? And I think it's probably what people are thinking about me with this bet. But it's an 11 runner novice at Wetherby, and this horse has had a pulled up and an unseat. Brilliant. Pulled up in a cellar, unseated last time. The other 2 runs were 4th places. I think one in a bumper, one in a hurdle race. And that actual piece of hurdle form ranks it in the top, well, third best piece of hurdle form in the race. When you actually look down the race and look at what the others have achieved, and if you were converting bumper form, point-to-point form in terms of how I calculate it, it's overall 4th best. So sometimes I put these up and I'm saying it's 3rd best, but there's a few unexposed horses in there. Actually, on paper, I make it the 4th best piece of form quite comfortably. So it's actually quite a good bet. I've realised I've not put the stars on there. It's quite simple. 2, 1, 1, 1. So 2 stars at Wetherby, 1 star at Dundalk. Well, I change a habit of a lifetime. The horse is ridden by Danny McMenamin, who's decent jockey. So that's a nice little tick. So there's no sort of like, you know, part-timer on there just to get the horse round. That being said, it well could be a just get the horse round kind of a gig because it's in a novice hurdle. Trained by Tim Easterby. I know people, you know, lots of people will have a view about the Easterbys and this, that and the other. But actually, Tim Easterby on the jumps is very decent to follow. Not a great win strike rate, but a place strike rate in handicaps. Fantastic. Last 5 seasons, plus 50% in the first 4 home. So if you, that's, you know, I'm not specifically saying framing, but it's easier to work out the stat like that from stats you can get online. But in the first 4, in either win, second, third, or fourth, he's 50% in handicaps. This isn't a handicap; it's a novice hurdle. If it was a maiden, I'd be slightly put off. His stats aren't clearly as good in novices or maiden races, but they're not terrible either. And yeah, there's evidence to suggest that he runs a horse in a novice. He does get the occasional winner, and there are placed horses in there. And Danny McMenamin only runs 7 times, I think, for Tim Easterby when I checked that, and finished in the first 4 3 times, albeit twice 4th place. So what we want is top 3. So very, very unlikely winner. These come in occasionally, whether they come in 66 to 1 chance of the time, I don't know. But from a place point of view, I think it's a decent enough bet. So You OK Hun is in. And then we get to these 3 at Dundalk, who on Irish form, I think they're 0 from 26 combined on Irish form, something like that. Not from, maybe even worse than that. I think it's something like that. 5th place is the best that any one of these is finished in Ireland. One of them, my Kirkham, has run in France historically, I think is what it is. So they are terrible on form. Now, 2 of them, Aquest and Slow Down Barney, I think the bookmakers are a little concerned about them based on the bookmaker activity. They priced them up too short, I think, based on how you would normally write a book. I think they priced them up too short. I do think they'll go wandering in the market, so I wouldn't be surprised if both of these, Aquest and Slow Down Barney, would go walkies. The other 66 to 1 shots, I don't see them coming in much, to be fair, but I could see the other 2 going walkies. So that's just, you know, if you're doing this and you've got bog in the morning, all the better for it for a couple of these, I would say. So Aquest, we backed it last time, and I've debated about whether or not I put the horse back in again, because it is a little on the short side, I think. I see lots of potential in the horse. So for those of you who remember, we backed this a few weeks ago. It finished 8th of 14 at Dundalk. But it looked like it was finishing pretty well, and the write-ups annoying. This is why it's annoying, and this is why I think the bookmakers are having a look at this. The write-up for it, in terms of if you read some of the main press, the Sporting Life Racing Post, they're too complimentary about the horse, which is a bit annoying. So some people will back it even though the form-wise it doesn't look so good. The history of the horse is it has done okay in what it's done. Hasn't achieved anything, but for the breeding wise, and if that's hopefully a bit you remember, the breeding wise, it's from the Oh-So family, who have got some really decent form over a mile, and it clearly has got potential to be way better than the mark. And the McGuinness team, so it's McGuinness and Adam Caffrey riding it, they've been in pretty good form at the start of the Dundalk season, so that's a nice little tick in the box. I do think, as I said, I'm happy to take the bet, but I think they're being really tight on the price. So I know we talked about overruns the other day, but the value the night before is so poor compared to even 2 years ago. It's really, really poor. A horse like that shouldn't be that price the night before, but it is where it is, and I'm take 14 to 1 on the basis that I think the horse might come on from last time, which was first run for the stable, and the breeding wise says it should be way better. 325, right, this one might be a bit of a hard sell on for some, because I can't see anyone else thinking this horse is anything other than a no-hoper. But my Kirkham, it's coming down the handicap quite significantly, and it's running all sorts of weird distances and stuff. I actually think, looking at it, running it over a mile is probably about right, and the all-weather, kind of when it's run on all-weather, which I think once at Dundalk on a mile and 2, and then it's ridden twice in France on the all-weather and actually performed all right. I think it actually won a race in France on the all-weather. So I think the all-weather's fine, and I just think it's getting to a point now where the handicap mark's gone down so much, it could end up framing at a big price. It's not a horse I'm looking at thinking, you know, they're running the handicap mark down and they're waiting for like some sort of pot, and it's gonna pop up and win a race. It's got potential to win a race ultimately, but I think it's one of those ones where it's getting to a handicap mark now where it could start to get placed at big odds, and it's one of those ones where then you'll see whether or not it gets placed a couple of times, or it gets placed once and then just goes down a little bit further and then gets placed again, because it's still, reading it, I think a lot of people read it and say the horse is on decline. It clearly isn't as good as it used to be, absolutely not. But I think from what I can see of the form, and actually it's inconsistent, but on the races where it's run to a better standard, I think there's enough in there to say that absolutely has got a framer's chance, even though the bare basic form of finishing positions says otherwise. But yeah, as I said, I think I've probably not done a great sell on that one because my brain's a bit tired. But yeah, when I've worked out the calculations on it, from a framing percentage chance, based on kind of when you start looking at ratings and distance and that kind of stuff, it came out well. And then we've got 525 Dundalk, again a bit short. I think 365 might be 25 still on this. Slow down Barney. It was trained by, I'm going to get this the wrong way around now. It's a Cromwell McConnell switch around, I think. Whichever way round. I think it's John McConnell now. It was Gavin Cromwell. I think it's that way around. And yeah, a bit like this horse, it's coming down in the handicap mark. So 4 runs ago, when it first ran, it was John McConnell. The first time it ran for John McConnell, it was over course and distance, and it was running off £14 higher, and it was 10th. It's then, since then, I think they've run it on, I think it might have run on the turf and then run on like a 1.2 mile race and then another 1.5 mile race. And the last time it ran a 1.5 mile race, it was something like 8th. I think something like that. And I just think it's one of those ones where, similar to this one, it's getting to a place now where it's handicapped, I think, to edge a place, and be in that kind of like 3rd to 6th kind of a realm. And I'd like the price to be a bit bigger because I think it should be. But again, I just think the bookies are protecting themselves a little bit because it's the type of horse that does pop up because it's gone so much down. £14 drop in 2 months is really, really significant. And if you just did some basic calculation, I think when it was running off 76 and it's now running off 62, I mean, my brain's still got a bit of juice. It was running off 76 and off its first time for John McConnell, it was like 10 and a bit lengths. And roughly, if you go on the basis that a pound is half a length, it's about seven lengths. That's how much better off it is compared to that race. And if you actually then convert that and look at the race, that's where you get to something like the 3rd to 6th kind of a range. If that makes sense to some folk, because let's face it, what I do is just not what most people do. Most people are trying to tell you the winner, or they're telling you why the horse is going to win, or the trends of the race. This is about the percentage chance of a horse framing. And I know in recent history on this channel, we've not done so well, but that's my case for these zebras. So 25p each way Yankee, 75p each way singles, nice and straightforward. 11.50 is the bet. 365 Paddy and Unibet are 4 places here. No one else is. So if that stays the same, 11 runners, 4 places, 365 Paddy and Unibet, I'd claim the 4th place for the channel stats. Sky are 5 on one of these, but there are only 3 there, so they would be the next best bookie. Everyone's 3 and most are 4, I think. That's something like that. All right, that's the bet. Cheltenham. I was going to mention Cheltenham. So in the kind of the last few days when the racing's not been up to much, I have been utilising my time, clearly spending time with my family. I've been doing that, but I've also been doing Cheltenham research, and probably a lot earlier than I usually do. I usually leave it a little bit to nearer to Christmas, but yeah, I want to try. I've been trying some different stuff for this season from an anti-post point of view, and targeting specific races. And so yeah, I've been doing some research, like a lot of it, and so I've got no guarantees going to come to much. And I'm still not quite I'm still debating about whether I put anything out on the channel related to it, because I much rather do stuff on the channel that's a bit more tried and tested, where I'm trying some different trend patterns for some of the races. So the ones I'm looking at are more the longer distance stuff. So Albert Bartlett is one that I knew the last couple of years I wanted to do a bit of deep dive research into the race, and basically try and work backwards. So can he find, because at this time of the season, the Albert Bartlett is not a race where you really ever have a shorty price favourite in there. So you've just got this big wide open market, and what it means is it looks really, really open, but if you work backwards, can you find the trends and the key lines, sometimes from certain stables, that work backwards to sort of see, can you find a horse that basically sat right now, that if it goes and wins its next race, suddenly is going to halve in odds, or even get to a quarter of what it was. So Albert Bartlett's a race I've been looking at. Brown Advisory is another race I've been looking at. So the Albert Bartlett, just for those less familiar, that's the 3 mile novice hurdle race. The Brown Advisory is the 3 mile novice chase race, used to be the RSA. And yeah, I mean, you've got slightly more to go on with something like the Brown Advisory because they're chasers, therefore they've had hurdling experience. With the Albert Bartlett, you don't always have hurdling experience. Most of them by this point have run at least in either in a bumper or a hurdle, and a lot of Albert Bartlett ones will have appeared in a point to point, and so that's what I mean. It takes a bit of effort, but basically going through the point to point form, which I know most people on here wouldn't be going anywhere near, but going through point to point form and trying to look at. It's hard to find. Form lines are harder to come by because you often find horses in a point to point that don't appear anywhere else. But yeah, so I've been looking at those races, and then along the way I've kind of picked up a few other horses that I'm like, oh, that's an interesting horse. That's not the horse. I don't think that horse might go in that race, but actually might be good in that race. So I've got some stuff also where I'm looking at where I've picked out stuff along the way that I think might be for certain races. And yeah, it's basically I'm looking at it in a way I haven't done before, and certain things, and even I've got a horse potentially that I think might be earmarked for the Boodles, which is handicap hurdle for juvenile horses. So yeah, I'm a bit of everywhere, but I've also had a look at some of the championship stuff. So for Gold Cup and Stayers Hurdle, again, the longer distance stuff is where I'm looking at. Anyway, the point of this long ramble, because it's not like I'm not going to tell you anything. I've decided I'm going to debate about what I put out on here about anti-post stuff, because historically I've done anti-post videos, and I've done them later. They've been like January ones, February ones. So yeah, I'm having some debate about whether I do that earlier this year, because yeah, last year's experience of Cheltenham was too many favourites won. If you bat them well out, you'd have found the value. But even betting anti-post January, February didn't get you a great deal. So that's why I'm working on new angles to go even further out to try and track stuff in. But what I was going to say, Fairy House is a really interesting weekend. So again, for the kind of uninitiated, right? So there's lots of marker races through the season of preps for things like Cheltenham particularly. And people are quite familiar with certain ones like Dublin Racing Festival and that kind of stuff. That's like a February meeting. Then you've got the Christmas meeting in is that I'm losing my train of thought. Yeah. Anyway, the Leopardstown meetings, February one, and then the December one, the Christmas one, which is a decent one. There's some good trials in there as well. This weekend at Fairy House there's racing on Saturday and Sunday, and Sunday is the one where historically there's been 3 grade 1s, 2 grade 1s now, because the Royal Bond's not a grade 1, was a grade 1 until I think it's grade 2 now, was a grade 1 up until last year, and then that's a race that people will be paying attention to, particularly also they'll be paying attention to the Drinmore and the Hatton Garden. The interesting thing about these two is they're mid-distance races. So the Drinmore is a novice chase mid-distance 2 mile 4, and the Hatton Garden is a mid-distance 2 mile and 2 mile and 4 hurdle, not novice. Drinmore novice, Hatton Garden not novice, right? Stay with me. So the thing with the Hatton Garden is it's a 2.5er, and you often get horses that run in that then go on and run quite well in the Stayers hurdle. So it's a mid-distance hurdle, but they're kind of using it as stepping stones. If you actually look at the history of the race, and Tiupu's won it 2 times, and then gone on and gone in the Stayers hurdle. The Drinmore is a 2.5 mile novice, and the interesting thing about that is you get horses in there that potentially are then going to step back down and go Arkle route, and you've got some in there that historically would have gone to the JLT, so the mid-distance novice chase race at Cheltenham that's no longer a mid-distance novice chase race at Cheltenham because it's a handicap, or potentially you go further on and they might go Brown Advisory or the National Hunt Chase race, the 3 mile and 6 novice chase race that now is also a handicap. I'm conscious here. I never normally get into stuff like Cheltenham. There's millions of other channels out there that also do all that sort of stuff. So that wasn't really what my niche is. But anyway, this is a right old ramble, and it wasn't meant to be. The point I'm trying to make, I'm going to get to it, is people will be looking at the Drinmore and the Hatton Garden and the Royal Bond to a degree, and looking at pointers to Cheltenham. All very valid. What I would suggest that people do and pay attention to for Cheltenham pointers is actually on the Saturday, which is the day that is less good, that doesn't have the grade 1s and the grade 2s. And on the Saturday, there is a beginner's chase race that starts the meeting. That is an excellent guide for potential horses that actually go on to do well in staying chasers. Sometimes Cheltenham, sometimes kind of more national type of races. So I would be, well, I am going to be, and I already have been looking at the declarations for the race. But ultimately looking at that beginner's chase race, that it doesn't have any prestige because it's a beginner's chase race, and you've got a 2.5 mile novice chase the day after. But this one is like a mid-distance beginner's chase race. It's worth paying attention to see what performs well in that race. That would be point 1. Point 2 is also on day 1, the Saturday. There is just a 2 mile maiden, and usually there's lots of entries and it gets split into 2. It doesn't happen every year. This year I think it probably went 72 horses on the declaration list. That is also a really interesting prep race. Or when I say it is, that particularly the last couple of years, those have started to get quite interesting in preps for Cheltenham. So what I'm saying is you've got really obvious races that a lot of the who's who of racing world will be really focusing on these grade 1s and grade 2 happening at Fairyhouse on Sunday. I'm saying when everyone's looking over there, you need to look over there. Actually have a look at what is going to be running in the beginner's chase race and the maiden hurdle race. When the final decks go in, it's worth following the market, because in those races you don't usually get big prices going in, even win or place. It doesn't happen. Usually the market's got those fairly accurate. But if you're looking at the maiden, I'd be looking at what might come from that might go on to the Supreme, or the whatever it was, the barring Bingham, that there was the Ballymore that I think now is confusingly the Turners, but it's a hurdle race. The 2 mile and 5 novice hurdle race. So that maiden, watch for what is going to be top of the market, because my suggestion is you might want to look at what's the anti-post price. So to look at the race before the race, what is favourite, second favourite, what kind of stables are you looking at, because you really want to go bigger stables. What's first, second, third favourite, and what kind of price can you get on those anti-post for those races. So if you're looking at the maiden at Fairyhouse on Saturday, I'd be looking at the Supreme and the, what's it called, Turners novice, 2 mile 5. The beginner's chase, trickier one, but I think Brown Advisory would be where you're going to go. You might find also in that beginner's chase race that you might get horses that come third, fourth, that might be then horses that you want to possibly look for the 2.5 mile novice chase handicaps and the National Hunt Chase ones there. So that's end of this unexpected ramble when I really wanted to go to bed. But The punchline was the maiden hurdle and the beginner's chase at Fairyhouse. Look at what's top of the market before the race. Have a look at the anti-post market for the races at Cheltenham that might correspond similarly in distance, 2 mile, maybe 2 mile and 5. And yeah, it might be worth having a little look and a little interest in there, because whatever goes in and wins those races will be significantly shorter for Cheltenham markets after the race. So the time to bet on the horse is before the race. There we go. I got there in the end. Right. Who knows whether that was useful or not? Just in the comments, feel free just to write "shut up" or get to the point. But yeah, when I'm tired, my brain goes on a little bit clearly. But yes, I hopefully got to the end because all the other Cheltenham channels out there will be telling you about the graded races. What I'm telling you is pay attention to what no one else is looking at, because that, and pay attention to it before the race. Look at the market before the race. That's what you should do. All right, I'm going to bed. Thank you very much. I'll come back on another video and I'll do all the tips to these stuff then. Thank you very much. I said that. Bye-bye.